Hi guys, welcome to this video. This is a Road to Tournament video for 2016, and it's the eve before a tournament. It's a doubles tournament in the local area, and it's actually the first doubles tournament I'll be taking part in, so I'm really looking forward to it. And I had a thought about which army I would take, and I decided on Space Marines, and this is my army right here that you can see. So not fully painted. I mean, that drop pod, the interior is painted, but the outside needs to be done still, so it's only just like undercoated in parts. But the rest of it is painted apart from that speeder in the back there. So almost painted, and it's a total of 1,278 points, which seems like a strange amount. But this doubles tournament is 2,500 points in total, and you can split those points between the two players however you want, so you don't have to have 1250, which is obvious because obviously I haven't taken that, I've taken more. The only restriction is that both players have to at least have a third of the total points allowed, so a minimum of 833 points basically. But you know, we're well over that, so it doesn't matter. So basically I'm just going to take you through the list and tell you why I decided to do this. So I'm running Space Marines straight out of the 7th edition Codex. I'm running them as Iron Hands, and I'm running a combined detachment as usual. Nothing fancy like the Gladius or anything like that, of course. And the reason for this being is that I do feel like the CAD detachment probably is the best one overall, because you can still get a lot of potent killing power, and it fits my playstyle. I haven't looked at some of the new supplement formations yet, however, due to the time the lists were supposed to be in for this tournament, no one can use that supplement anyway, so it's not really surprising. And as a result, there shouldn't be any fancy Space Marine psychic powers going on, so no psychers here, I didn't need to worry about that. So first off I'm going to go through what I've actually got in the list, and then we'll talk about why. Okay, so first things first, obviously, combined detachment, I have a captain on the bike, which is right there, with the chapter master upgrade, purely because we had the points, and there was less anything else I could bring that was as effective as an extra wound and attack, and orbital strike, which is nice, so yeah, got that. So she's got the bike, artificer armour, a storm shield, melter bombs, the Teeth of Terror, and an Auspex. And again, the Auspex is purely just because there was 5 points left over. Getting extra melter bombs, there was basically nowhere left in my army where it would be worthwhile to put melter bombs, and there was nowhere in his army where to put melter bombs. I'll tell you about his army in a bit. And there was nothing else really for the points that would be as useful. So the Auspex is good because it applies to all units shooting against the target unit, so reducing that cover save by 1 will apply to our entire combined army, so that's really nice. And you know, after I fired that orbital strike, I don't really care because she's just got the bolter or grenades or whatever, so you know, it won't be that useful. Teeth of Terror is probably my favourite relic, and the reason being is that it really evens up the attacks. You get that D3 extra attacks, so on the charge you're getting at least 6 attacks, but you've got a potential total of 8 attacks on the charge, which is insane. A weapon skill 6, initiative 5, and of course all AP 3, strength 6, which is really nice. The other benefit is it's mastercrafted, and it's got the concussive special rule, so you know, if you just cause 1 wound to something, you're reducing it. And to be honest, most monstrous creatures in the game where that would be effective, or even dreadnoughts, that kind of thing, you know, they're not. You're going to be going at decent speed to them, but they don't usually have a better than 3 up armor save anyway. So she can cope with that. And for the things that are worse, she's got those melter bombs in there. Of course, being Iron Hands, she has It Will Not Die as a bonus rule, and the Feel No Pain, 6 up. Now for the Warlord traits, I'm going to be rolling on the ones from the Space Marine Codex, purely to try and get that Feel No Pain one. I could go in the personal traits to try and get the same thing, but one of those traits is It Will Not Die and Fearless, and I don't feel like I really need Fearless, and I feel like overall, if I don't get the Feel No Pain Warlord trait, then the ones on the ones in the Space Marine book are going to be slightly better for most parts, unless I want to go for the Outflank or the victory points in challenges, which will just basically depend on who we face at the time. Yep, so that's that, really. Her whole job, basically, is to ride alongside this squad of bikes here. This large thing, so this is actually one squad of bikes that will be combat squadded. But yeah, that's the whole point. She's going to ride at the front of those, tank the wounds with her 2-up save, and the feel no pain, of course, regaining wounds, that kind of thing. Can look outside anything scarier than that. And yep, basically peel off fairly early on, probably seize other objectives if need be, and just basically cause a nuisance, kill tanks, kill tactical squads, that kind of thing. Basically infantry killing, just going to go and crush them and then move on, and that's the whole point. And I've used it this way quite a lot, so quite happy with that. Nice crunching close combat unit. Okay, so onto the troops then. We'll talk about the bikes first, because obviously they are troops, since I have a character on a bike. This is just one big squad of 8 bikes, with an additional multi-melter attack bike, which is just there. Combat squadded for maximum effect, so this sergeant is in this squad, and he's got a combi melter and melter bombs. And the other squad has 2 melter guns and a multi-melter attack bike, obviously. Clearly for tank hunting. The idea being, combined with her, there's 2 lots of melter bombs in there, there's a decent amount of crack grenades, and of course the combi melter for when you really need it. So they can do anti-tank, and they've got plenty of melter in there, so they can do anti-tank. Generally speaking, this squad seems to be targeted first, which is fair enough, but you know, the others die anyway. The others kill things anyway, so it's fine. And of course they're all scoring, they're all obsec, so that's really nice. Pretty straightforward, they're just going to go for the closest, scariest tanks. That's basically it. Cause a nuisance and drive around scoring objectives, that's their whole job. So on the troops front we've got 2 5-man tactical squads. I'll just tilt the camera a bit. So first off we've got this 5-man squad right here, and in that unit is a las cannon and a combi grav, and that's basically it. And I'm really a fan of this unit. Basically their job will be to sit on an objective in the backfield. Hopefully it'll be a Skyfire objective or a +1 cover or whatever, but they'll be sitting in cover, they'll be sitting on an objective, and they just stay in the back line sniping with that las cannon. If anything comes close, they actually are pretty scary. So they do well because they're a backline unit, and what generally happens is the kind of things that hit your backline are hard-hitting things. So we're talking like monstrous creatures, we're talking terminators, elite units, that kind of thing. So having a las cannon, a few bolters, and a combi grav in there is really nice. And I can fire that combi grav because they're not moving, so it's 18-inch range of 3 shots, you know. It's good. It can actually do a lot of damage, and I've wiped Terminator squads with this unit, so you know, it can be very effective when it wants to be. So for very cheap and holding an objective, I'm not complaining whatsoever on that front. And they'll synergize well with the Funfire cannon, which we'll come to in a second. But finishing the troops, another 5-man tactical squad, and in there they have a flamer and a combi flamer and melter bombs, and they are in a rhino with a doze blade. And again, this is a unit that I have run many times. I'm very pleased with it. It's cheap. It's 2 lots of obsec again in fast moving transport. They can shoot both the flamers at the top if they need to, or they can get out, you know, flame things, and they can also blow up tanks. And because they're such a minor threat, people tend to ignore them, and they're good at scoring objectives. They're well protected, and if need be, they can add their anti-infantry firepower and, you know, support the bikes or support one of the other units later on. So they do a decent job at that. Okay, so going back to the Funfire cannon. Just see if we can get a bit closer here. Yeah, so this is the only heavy support I have in the army. And does it really need any other introductions than that? Basically, with these bolstered defences, it'll support this unit, but it'll also support my opponent's backfield units, who has got a lot more than me, because really I've only got the 2, which is obviously a tactical squad and him. But you know, it's good artillery, it's good blasts, so I'm not complaining that, and it's really useful for 100 points. Okay, so the other things I have is 2 separate units of land speeders, so it's 1 and 2. And they're both loaded out exactly the same with double heavy flamers, which is my favourite loadout because it's so cheap. It's just 50 points each for those on a land speeder chassis, which is really, really nice and very deadly for infantry. Things like scouts, fire warriors, you're just killing them on 2 basically, which is really nice. Also things like if you face orcs and open top transports in particular, should be very scared of these things, because you're getting those D6 hits on the people inside. So that's 2d6 whenever they hit an open top transport, which is really nice. And usually the type of things that are open top transports are weak to heavy flamers anyway, so it's really nice. And their whole thing is that they will be deep striking, which would be a risk if it wasn't for the final choices, which is the 2 drop pods, both of which have locator beacons, and they are dedicated transports for 2 command squads. So the first command squad has 4 flamers and an apothecary, obviously anti-infantry. Being iron hands, that apothecary makes them have a 4-up feel no pain, which means if they get shot at, they're quite resilient with a 3-up armor save and a 4-up feel no pain immediately afterwards. Unless, of course, they add some incredibly dedicated anti-tank firepower towards them, in which case, who cares? They're cheap enough that it doesn't matter. And we have other things to take care of those kind of tanks, that kind of anti-tank firepower. So, they're going to hit hard on infantry. If it's things like Guardians or something like that, or a big blob squad, they're going to be in real trouble against these kind of things. But even against things like bikes, or just basically any kind of infantry, they've got enough template there to cause a lot of wounds for the most part, so actually quite deadly. And the final command squad is exactly the same thing, so we've got an apothecary, but instead of 4 flamers they have 4 melter guns. And yep, obviously they come in, they get out, they shoot a tank, probably the scariest tank on the thing in the rear armor, and that's their whole purpose. If they survive past that, that's brilliant. I'm going to make them as difficult as possible. Both of these squads are going to be as annoying as possible for anything. And because both drop pods have locator beacons, then they can immediately be followed up the next turn by the next drop pod, for instance, or the other things. And depending on what we're facing, I can choose which pod comes down on the first turn. So whether I need that extra melter or not, it doesn't matter. So there we go. So before we go any further, I should say my partner in this tournament is running Astra Militarum, or Imperial Guard, if you prefer. And as you can imagine, he's got lots of cheap troops and infantry, that kind of thing. So he's running a big blob squad with plenty of las cannons. Put some priests in there so it can just sit back, and again, that really goes well with the Tech Marine, because he can boss that terrain. And these guys can protect them against anything particularly special, but they have enough stuff in there. They've got more melter bombs and that kind of thing. And with those priests in there, and a Primaris Psyker as well, buffing them, and their orders, that's actually going to be a lot of firepower coming out from the backfield, holding objectives, and, it's actually pretty scary, even for monstrous creatures, to get up there. And even getting in combat with them isn't necessarily going to be the best thing for people to do. Okay, so he's also got a squad of veterans with plasma guns in a Chimera. His HQ is a company command squad to issue those orders. They're also in a Chimera. The veterans have plasma guns, so they'll be moving forward. They're kind of like our be-all everything. They're just there to deal with problems as they arise, otherwise score objectives. That's their whole purpose, really. They're our fallback. So the other things that are interesting is that he's bringing a Hydra, which, as you can imagine, not a Hydra, sorry, a Wyvern, which is the artillery piece which fires 4 blasts, and of course that pairs very well with the Thunderfire Cannon as well, so that's going to be a lot of blasts coming in. And he's got a Master of Ordnance as well, so there's going to actually be a lot of big blast templates coming in. He's got a Lima Russ Executioner, which is also on the backfield, so our own deployment zone is going to have a lot of shooting coming in, and that's why my army is pretty much geared for speed and in-your-face kind of assault, because the whole point being it's a distraction more than anything. It hits hard, it might be quite fragile, but it hits really hard, and the whole point is to cripple things, and then beyond that, we've got so much firepower coming out every turn that we should be able to kill things before the full brunt of them are brought to us, and if we can cripple most things like that, then we should be able to outlast the rest of it. So the last things we have is a Scout Sentinel, because we have the points. That's with an autocannon. It's purely on its own, and it's purely going to outflank, and the purpose behind that, obviously, is just to come in. It's another really cheap unit. It's 40 points, I believe. Come in, score an objective, shoot rear armour, just lend a bit of support fire, but we don't expect it to kill much, just be annoying. If someone wants to blow it up, well, they've wasted a unit shooting at it, whatever. Other than that, it can just get objectives, and that's all we care about. And the other thing is a squad of Rough Riders with Melter Bombs. They'll pair well with the bikes, obviously. Rough Riders, I really do like Rough Riders. Again, very cheap, very fragile, but decent in close combat. And the thing is, again, if someone targets the Rough Riders, then we don't care. We really don't care. If they die, they die. If not, then they're very fast. They can score objectives, and of course, lend some combat weight, and of course, kill tanks all on their own. So we've actually got a lot of anti-tank and a lot of anti-infantry with so many flamers and so many las cannons and melters and blast templates. So I feel like we've got a really strong army here. Now, of course, this tournament actually has very few restrictions in the fact that you are basically free to take any kind of formation you want. You could run the Necron Decurion, that kind of thing. You can run all the Tau stuff. You can run the Eldar stuff. There's no restriction on gargantuan creatures or super heavies. However, I don't expect to see many of those, purely because they've added in the rules that if for every wound caused against a gargantuan creature or a super heavy, the people who inflicted the wound score 2 victory points. Now that's actually very high, and it's fairly easy to do wound here and there. Now winning the game gives you 5 victory points, whereas drawing gives you 3. So obviously if you draw the game and then inflict a wound on a super heavy of some sort, Lord of War, suddenly you've scored as many points as you would have from a win. So you can see how many points that would give up immediately. And of course, the tournament itself will be Maelstrom, with a different mission each time, and all the points you score in Maelstrom also contribute. So basically, it's all about scoring those objectives, scoring those victory points, and that's why we've got such a fast-moving, obsec kind of force. Because that's where it's all going to matter. It really doesn't matter if we win the game. All that matters is how many points we can score, and that's what we're going for. So yeah, I don't expect to see that many super heavies. However, having said that, we stand a good chance, I reckon, because we've got a lot of las cannons, we've got a lot of melter, we've got some plasma in there, we've got that auto cannon if we really need to throw everything in, and my captain can hold her own for the most part in most assaults. So we should be okay. Now, again, gargantuan monstrous creatures, they're a bit more of a worry, and of course, most people would take Grav in their Space Marine lists for that kind of thing. But honestly, I don't have that many Grav weapons, and I'm not a massive fan of them. I have Grav Centurions, and I've had them since they came out, and I've only used them a few times, to be honest. They're very powerful, of course, but they do have a lot of glaring weaknesses, and they get very expensive very fast to compensate for those weaknesses. And yeah, because of that, I feel like in the current state of the game especially, there's many ways to get around that. And I prefer to have a more specialised list. So, in other words, I'd rather definitely kill tanks, definitely kill infantry, and then if there's monstrous creatures, well, we should have enough firepower to at least scare them a bit, but if that's all that's left, then I don't care at that point. Now I could go Grav, but it's a lot more generalist. I don't like Plasma for the same reason. I've never really liked Plasma particularly. But there we go, so that is the whole point of the list. So yeah, I have run basically a similar list to this for a long time now, at about 1250. Obviously I don't have the Chapter Master upgrade usually. Usually I have to drop a few of the Melter Bomb upgrades and that kind of thing. But yeah, it has been very powerful. I've played this against Tau before, The tower player had 1500 points to my 1250, and I was able to table him. So yeah, it's pretty powerful when it needs to be. It's basically so many threats. That's the whole point. Yeah, I mean, Thunderfire Cannon's a threat. Probably the least threatening parts of this army are the tactical squads. But even basically this squad can sweep objectives on its own from light infantry, or even like other Space Marines. It's got enough firepower to do it. This squad can wipe elite units or cause some serious damage to elite units. But people don't really expect it. Maybe they forget about the combi graph or whatever, but people kind of forget or just don't expect much from it. And of course, they shoot the command squads. Well, that's fine. I'll go to ground. I'll get my 6-up cover save, maybe better if I'm in terrain. I'll get my 4-up feel no pain, whatever. You're shooting at them, I'm bound to save some of them at some point. And, you know, they can still snap fire. So, I'm happy with that. Obviously the flamers couldn't snap fire, but, you know, if you're shooting at them, I honestly don't care. Same with the speeders. The speeders do a lot of damage when they come in. But, you know, after that I don't care. Like, I'll jink, and I can use them to seize objectives, fly around very fast. It's unlikely people will be able to catch them. So there you go. The good thing about the drop pods having the locator beacons and stopping them scattering is because it works for 3 units, it will work for another drop pod. Depending on which one didn't come in first turn, it'll work for the 2 speeders. The good thing about those is that, again, people don't really want 2 heavy flamers deep striking in, possibly 4 heavy flamers deep striking in, without any kind of scatter. It's not really a thing they want to do. And that is really a heavy blow, for the most part, to enemy armies. The problem is, if they want to stop that, then they have to dedicate resources to taking out drop pods. And I can tell you now, most people will not be able to do that, because there's so much other things on the table that they'll need to deal with. If they do go for the drop pods, then I don't care. I'll still deep strike the speeders. Again, worst comes to worst, they die. It's 50 points. I really don't care. It's just worth it for the whole threat they present. So that's basically it. So as I say, it's the eve of the tournament. It's a 2-day tournament with a total of 4 games. So I'll try and do an update in between, but if not, I will have a full review afterwards. And I have another solo tournament coming up soon after, at which point I will be taking my sisters. So I will make a video on that specifically later on. But other than that, that's it for this video, so thanks for watching. Remember to click like if you liked it. Please let me know any comments you have on this list or anything like that below. You know, I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Been pretty busy of late, but I've been trying to keep up with comments at least, and messages, that kind of thing. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, tactical videos, and just other general content coming up soon. So, thanks for watching, see you next time.